The spark of conflict. The vast expanse of the galaxy had been a peaceful place for centuries, governed by the Galactic Council, a powerful alliance of alien species. Each member of the Council, from the towering insectoid Jarkan to the intelligent and mysterious Eldari, was ancient beyond measure, their civilizations stretching back millennia. They believed in a well-ordered universe, one where peace reigned, and all new species were brought under their control, either through diplomacy or force. Humans, however, were different. Earth had only recently made their mark on the galactic stage, having been discovered by the Council just a few decades ago. The humans were like nothing the Council had encountered before. They were unpredictable, passionate, and surprisingly resourceful. While they lacked the advanced technology and centuries of history like the other species, they had something far more dangerous: an unyielding spirit. This spirit was evident from the moment the human envoy, Marcus Allen, set foot on the capital world of the Galactic Council. He was a calm, composed representative, chosen for his diplomatic skill and his ability to keep his emotions in check. He knew the stakes were high. The Council was vast and powerful, and Earth had much to lose. But the humans, despite being young on the galactic scale, had their own growing influence. They were learning quickly, adapting faster than the Council had anticipated. The humans had sent Marcus Allen with one simple message: they wanted a seat at the table. Earth had valuable resources, minerals, fuel sources, and unique technologies that the galaxy's powers coveted. But they also had a reputation. The humans were fiercely independent and had begun to show the galaxy that they were not easily controlled. They had faced wars, had fought against alien invaders, and had survived. Marcus knew the Council could not ignore that. His mission was to offer a peaceful resolution, to propose an alliance, and to ensure that Earth would not be subjugated by the Council like so many other species. But the Council, for all its wisdom and age, could not understand humans. They viewed them as too reckless, too unpredictable. They had little interest in alliance talks. They saw Earth as a problem, a species that might one day challenge their supremacy. The moment Marcus arrived in the Council's hall, a grand chamber of towering columns and shimmering lights, he felt the weight of centuries of history pressing down on him. The room was filled with the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Jarkan, their mandibles clicking, watched him with cold, calculating eyes. The Eldari, tall and elegant, seemed to study him with an air of superiority. Even the lesser species, who had gained power through sheer numbers, were present, their eyes fixed on the human envoy. Marcus Allen stood tall, his voice calm as he began his address. He spoke of Earth's history, their resilience, and the great potential for cooperation. He offered resources, technology, and the strength of humanity's will. The human race was ready to be part of the galactic community, he said. They were ready to be allies, not subjects. But as his words echoed through the grand hall, there was a subtle tension in the air. Some of the Council members exchanged glances, their expressions hardening. They did not trust humans, and they saw this offer as little more than a bid for power. The head of the Galactic Council, an ancient being known as Korath, rose from his seat. His body was composed of shifting metallic strands, and his voice resonated with authority that sent a chill through the room. He had seen countless species come and go, each with their own desires and plans. Earth was no different. With cold calculation, Korath spoke. You speak of cooperation, human, but what you fail to understand is that the universe does not work that way. The galaxy is ruled by power, and you are too weak to challenge the order we have established. You have no place here. Your race is nothing more than a fleeting moment in the grand scheme of things. The words stung, but Marcus remained composed. He had expected this. He had expected the arrogance, the dismissive attitude. What he hadn't expected was what came next. Without warning, Korath's voice dropped, becoming colder, more dangerous. You are a threat, and threats must be dealt with swiftly. Before anyone could react, guards stepped forward, their weapons drawn. The shock was immediate. The Council had made their decision. Marcus Allen, the human envoy, was no longer a negotiator. He was now an enemy. The room erupted into chaos. Some of the council members tried to intervene, but it was too late. Marcus had been marked for death. With a single command, Korath's agents carried out the execution, taking Marcus's life before anyone could stop them. It was a decision that would come to haunt the Galactic Council. In the moments following Marcus's death, the room fell silent. The weight of the act began to sink in. Some council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others, especially the Jarkan, looked pleased by the outcome. But Korath's victory felt hollow. The humans had just been insulted, humiliated, and shown that their fate was nothing more than the whim of a few ancient leaders. And the worst part was that Korath had just unknowingly ignited a fire that would soon consume the galaxy. The spark had been lit. The human race, though newly introduced to galactic politics, would not let this act of violence go unanswered. Earth would rise, and the galaxy would soon learn that they had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The stage was set for a war the galaxy had never anticipated, a war that would change the balance of power forever. When the message reached Earth that Marcus Allen, the official envoy of humanity, had been executed by the Galactic Council without warning or negotiation, it spread like wildfire across the planet, igniting a storm of outrage, confusion, and grief that united all nations in a way that hadn't been seen for centuries. Governments that once argued over borders and policies suddenly stood side by side. Political enemies became allies overnight, and people who had never agreed on anything now found a common purpose in one unshakable truth. The galaxy had spilled human blood without justice, and Earth would never forget. Inside the underground command facility known as Iron Core, buried deep beneath the frozen mountains of Antarctica, the most powerful military minds and scientific leaders gathered for an emergency meeting that would decide the fate of Earth's future in the stars. The atmosphere inside the war chamber was cold, not because of the weather outside, but because of the silence that hung in the air, broken only by the hum of holographic projectors and the steady thumping of hearts filled with anger and disbelief. General Reeve, a tall man with silver hair and eyes sharp like blades, stood at the center of the room, staring at the holographic image of Marcus's final moments. His calm face, his last words, and the sudden flash of light as his life was taken, broadcasted secretly by a hidden surveillance unit embedded in his suit. Around him sat admirals, scientists, and leaders from every part of Earth, including Luna Base and Mars Station, because the message wasn't just heard on Earth, it was felt across the solar system, and the reaction had been the same everywhere. This was an act of war. "We warned them," General Reeve said, his voice steady but heavy. "We told them humanity would come in peace, but we would not bow, and now they've shown us exactly how little they value our existence." Dr. Helena Mirov, head of Earth's Advanced Weaponry Division, leaned forward, her voice sharp and controlled. "They see us as primitive, but they don't know what we've hidden, what we've built in the dark places of our planet and beneath the surface of our moon." The room grew quiet, and slowly lights dimmed as a new hologram flickered to life in the center. A massive ship, larger than anything the Council could imagine, began to spin slowly above the table, its dark metal body shaped like a creature from ancient nightmares. It was Earth's greatest secret, the Leviathan, a warship created not for conquest, but for one reason only: to protect humanity from extinction if the galaxy ever turned hostile, if diplomacy failed, and if humanity ever faced annihilation from forces beyond Earth. Project Leviathan had been whispered about in top-secret meetings for years, but very few believed it was real. Until now. The ship had never been launched, never been seen by anyone outside the highest level of clearance, but its power was unmatched, powered by artificial gravity cores, armed with dark energy rail cannons, and protected by quantum shielding that could bend space around it, making it nearly invisible to traditional scans. "This ship," Dr. Mirov said, "was our last line of defense, But after what the Council did, it's time we move from defense to response. There were no cheers, no applause, only a grim silence as everyone in the room realized that they were about to change Earth's destiny forever. From explorers to warriors. Across the globe, preparations began in secret. Factories hidden beneath oceans lit up again. Orbital stations above Earth began transferring energy directly into Leviathan systems, and Mars-based engineers worked round the clock to upgrade the ship's navigation core to prepare it for faster-than-light travel. But even as Earth began to move like a sleeping giant awakening, the Council had already sent out a message to the rest of the galaxy, warning other civilizations to cut ties with Earth and calling for a containment strategy before the humans became too dangerous. What they didn't realize was that humanity had already crossed that line the moment they executed Marcus. In the shadows of space, Earth's enemies whispered plans, but Earth listened too, because they had their own spies, their own satellites, and their own listening posts orbiting the farthest reaches of known space. And when Earth learned that the Council was preparing a preemptive strike, planning to destroy Earth before Leviathan could be deployed, the timeline changed. Now it was a race to awaken Leviathan, a race to prepare humanity for the war it never wanted, but now could not avoid. And as the sun rose over Earth, casting golden light on cities filled with quiet rage and silent determination, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Far above the surface of the Earth, hidden within the shadow of the moon, something ancient and powerful began to stir, its metallic skin glistening faintly under the distant light of the sun, its systems humming back to life for the first time in over a century as the final command was given from Earth's Central Command. They had named it Leviathan, not because it was monstrous in nature, but because it represented a force that could not be stopped, a power that belonged only to a species pushed to the edge and forced to survive in a galaxy that saw them as lesser beings. For decades, Leviathan had slept in silence inside a crater on the moon, cloaked from sensors, buried under layers of rock and reinforced shielding that made it appear like just another part of the lunar surface, while engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked in secret beneath it in a base known only as Sanctum 1. Now the moment they all had trained for, the nightmare they had feared, had finally arrived. The lights across Sanctum 1 turned red, alarms blared in a low rhythmic hum, and launch crews sprinted across corridors lined with reinforced steel, shouting orders and confirming systems as Leviathan's massive core began its slow ignition process. In the heart of the command chamber, Commander Leotran, who had once served in Earth's orbital defense fleet and now led Project Leviathan, stood with her eyes fixed on the central screen that showed the rising energy levels of the ship's main reactor, her face calm but her heart pounding with a storm of emotions. All systems responding. Her chief engineer called out, "Reactor is stable. Charging shields. Awakening AI core in 3, 2, 1. A blue light filled the room as Leviathan's onboard artificial intelligence, known as Echo, came online for the first time in decades, its voice cold, precise, but strangely human. Awakening sequence complete. Greetings, Commander Tran. Status: Earth under threat. Protocol: engage. The words sent a chill through everyone in the room, not because of fear, but because those words meant that the time for planning was over and the time for action had begun. Back on Earth, the global network known as UnityNet broadcast a silent signal to the people, not revealing Leviathan's existence, but sharing the truth that Earth would not kneel, that humanity would answer this act of war not with surrender, but with strength. In cities across the planet, people watched the skies with anxious eyes, knowing deep down that something massive was moving just beyond their view, something that could decide the fate of their world. Meanwhile, in space, near the outer rim of Earth's influence, unmanned satellites began to vanish, one by one, silenced by unknown ships that bore the insignia of the Galactic Council, ships that moved in the shadows of planets, preparing to strike first and fast before Earth could defend itself. But they were already too late. With a thunderous roar that no sound could carry in space, but that sensors picked up as a surge of energy stronger than anything Earth had ever released, Leviathan rose from the moon, its engines glowing like stars, its frame larger than any ship the galaxy had seen from humanity, shaped like a beast of metal and light, a Leviathan not of the oceans but of the stars. The Council had underestimated Earth. They had assumed humanity was still young, still weak, still divided. But now, they watched in horror from their distant stations as their surveillance drones sent back images of the ship that Earth had kept hidden, a ship that should not have been possible for such a primitive world to build. Inside Leviathan, thousands of crew members, pilots, engineers, soldiers, and scientists, prepared for deployment, strapping into their stations, going through the drills they had memorized for years, but never thought they'd truly need. In the war room, Commander Tran stared at the holographic map of space around Earth, noting the strange silence coming from one sector, the same sector where multiple Council ships had been detected days ago, but now showed nothing. "They're cloaking," she said. "They're waiting for us to move first." But Earth wasn't going to wait. She gave the order, and Leviathan began to drift forward, slow and controlled, headed straight for the outer ring of satellites where the Council's ships were hiding. And every crew member knew this wasn't just a mission, it was a message. Earth was awake. Earth was angry. And Earth was armed. As Leviathan moved beyond the shadow of the moon and entered open space, its systems locked onto the nearest Council stealth ship, still trying to hide like a ghost behind the asteroid field, unaware that Leviathan could see not with ordinary sensors, but with quantum motion arrays that detected even the breath of a ship in silence. The first strike came not with noise but with light, a silent flash, a beam of energy that tore through the void and ripped the enemy ship into pieces before its crew could even react. The rest of the Council ships broke formation and scattered, their captains shouting into comm channels that Earth had become a threat beyond prediction, that humanity had crossed a line, that the war had truly begun. But they were wrong. The war had begun the moment they executed the Envoy. This was just humanity's reply. The stars, usually quiet and calm in their eternal silence, had now become the battlefield for a war that no one in the galaxy had expected, one that the Galactic Council had started with arrogance, and one that Earth had decided to finish with fury unlike anything ever seen before. Leviathan, Earth's hidden superweapon, was now fully active, and its glowing engines left trails of light behind as it cut through space like a burning sword, its size dwarfing every Council vessel it encountered, its armor strong enough to withstand the heaviest energy cannons, and its weapons precise enough to strike before enemies could even lock their aim. On board the bridge, Commander Tran stood with her eyes focused on the holographic display that showed Council ships scrambling across the sector, trying to regroup after Leviathan's sudden and devastating first strike, their formation shattered, and their confidence already slipping away with every second. "Echo, status of enemy fleet," she asked without looking away. 23 confirmed warships detected. The AI responded calmly. 12 damage, 5 retreating, 6 preparing for counterattack. Everyone on the bridge knew what came next. The first battle was not about survival, it was about sending a message. And so, Leviathan moved forward again, not to run, not to hide, but to meet the enemy in open space where stars would witness the fire of vengeance, and where history would remember the day humanity stopped being hunted and started hunting back. On the other side of the battlefield, inside the command ship of the Galactic Council's fleet, Admiral Tarn of the Thoraxi species, one of the longest-serving military minds in the galaxy, watched the approaching monster with disbelief in his eyes and dread in his heart, for he had seen thousands of battles, destroyed entire civilizations, and never once imagined that a young world like Earth would ever be able to challenge the might of the Council. "This thing," he whispered, "it should not exist." But it did, and it was coming for them. Council warships opened fire, releasing streams of plasma and kinetic rounds, lighting up the void like a second sunrise. But Leviathan's shields absorbed them like rain falling on stone, and its return fire was not scattered or desperate. It was focused, strategic, and absolutely deadly. Each shot fired from Leviathan's cannons pierced through enemy ships with the accuracy of a surgeon, destroying engines, melting hulls, and disabling weapons, all while the giant moved calmly, without fear, like a predator playing with prey it had already claimed. Commander Tran gave her officers orders in a firm, steady voice, not because she had no fear, but because she had prepared for this day all her life, trained for this exact moment, when Earth would no longer ask for mercy, it would demand respect. "Target their command ship," she said, "but don't destroy it. Not yet. Let them see us up close." As Leviathan closed the distance between itself and Admiral Xarn's vessel, panic spread through the Council fleet, captains begging for retreat, crews abandoning their posts, and communication channels filled with warnings that Earth was no longer defenseless, that Earth had built something the Council could not match, and that they had made a fatal mistake by thinking humans would break. Inside the Council command ship, Admiral Xarn stared at the approaching Leviathan on the main screen, its enormous figure growing larger with every passing moment, its weapons glowing with energy, and its eyes. Yes, its sensor arrays shaped like piercing eyes, staring directly at him. "They're not just fighting," he realized out loud. "They're watching us." A pulse wave from Leviathan disabled all external systems on Xarn's ship, shutting down engines, freezing weapons, and leaving the mighty vessel floating powerless in the dark. And then, a message came through, broadcast on all frequencies, in the Council's own language, translated by Earth's eye. "You killed our Envoy. You started a war. Now, you will listen." And then silence. Deadly, heavy silence. Because Earth didn't need to shout. It simply acted. The Council fleet had never felt such fear, not even during the ancient wars against the old empires that were now long gone, not even during the collapse of rogue planets, because never before had a species so new, so young, risen with such terrifying strength and perfect timing. As Leviathan drifted through the broken battlefield, scanning the last of the retreating ships, letting some go to carry the message back, the stars above seemed to pulse brighter, as if watching the drama unfold with quiet judgment. Earth had not just answered the Council's violence, it had declared its presence. And in every corner of the galaxy, where humans were still seen as fragile and small, whispers began to spread like wildfire. "They have a Leviathan. Earth is not weak. This war is already changing everything." But for Commander Tran, this was not about revenge. It was about survival. And Leviathan was only the beginning. The stars were no longer quiet. They echoed with signals of distress, emergency broadcasts, and the cries of once proud fleets that had believed no one could ever challenge the Galactic Council. But now, after Leviathan's assault, the balance had shifted, and across the galaxy, everyone, soldier or civilian, ruler or refugee, asked the same question. What will Earth do next? Commander Tran stood silently on the command deck of Leviathan, the darkened bridge lit only by the glowing screens around her. The crew waited for her next move. They had delivered their first blow, but the war had not ended. It had only begun. "Status?" she asked without emotion. "Enemy command ship is drifting," the AI responded. "Most Council ships have retreated. Some are broadcasting surrender. Others, silence." Leah nodded slowly. She had expected this. Earth's message was loud. And now it was time to make sure no one ever forgot it. "Prepare for full system scan," she said. "Find the closest Council base. We're not done." As Leviathan turned through the void like a sleeping giant awakening fully for the first time, its engines burned bright blue against the black canvas of space. It was not flying away. It was moving forward. The Galactic Council, shattered and desperate, held an emergency summit in the deepest corner of neutral space. The high chair was missing, killed in the shockwave during Leviathan's surprise strike, and now the counselors bickered like frightened children, blaming one another. They were not supposed to have this kind of power, one shouted. This is not just a ship, another whispered. This is war reborn. They came to us in peace, an older voice finally said, deep with regret. And we answered with execution. Outside the chamber, guards tightened security. Rumors spread of planets switching sides, of council worlds refusing to send reinforcements, and of lesser races rising in support of Earth, hopeful that the age of fear might be ending. But Earth wasn't seeking to rule. It was seeking to remind them all what happens when you push too far. Back aboard Leviathan, a transmission was received. It wasn't from a council world. It was from a small border colony, one long forgotten by the core worlds. We saw what you did, the voice said, trembling. You stood. You fought. We want to stand with you. One by one, more signals came. Outposts, forgotten races, small governments, all sending the same message. You are not alone. And yet, Commander Leah Tran didn't celebrate. She knew what was coming. The council would regroup. They would not go quietly. The execution of Earth's Envoy had lit a fire, but that fire now had to be controlled. That night, the crew of Leviathan watched from the viewing deck as distant stars blinked and shifted. It was beautiful and terrifying, because everyone understood. If Earth lost now, the punishment would be unimaginable. But they also knew something else, something deeper. They were not afraid. And then the alarm sounded. Incoming ships, the AI announced. Multiple jump signatures, council reinforcements. The council was back. A massive fleet emerged from hyperspace. Hundreds of ships, larger than anything seen in the first wave. This was not a scouting force. This was vengeance. On the bridge, the tension was thick. Shields up, weapons hot. Leia ordered. Outside, the void was filled with fire. The council struck hard and fast, desperate to prove that Earth's victory was only luck, that Leviathan could still fall. But they were wrong again. Leviathan did not run. It stood its ground. And when it fired, when its cannons unleashed power drawn from Earth's deepest knowledge of war, it tore through the enemy like a blade through mist. Enemy ships fell one by one. Council strategies collapsed. And then something strange happened. The enemy stopped firing. One by one, ships powered down their weapons. A new transmission came in. It wasn't a demand. It was a plea. Earth, what do you want? Commander Leah Tran stared at the screen. Silence filled the bridge. Then she answered, we want peace, but not peace built on fear. Not peace built on silence. We want peace where no envoy is killed, no voice is silenced, and no planet is forgotten. There was a long pause. Then the council responded. And if we refuse? Leia's voice was quiet, but unshakable. Then we send another Leviathan. The galaxy held its breath, and from that moment on, everything changed. Earth was no longer seen as a child of the stars. It had become something more. A guardian, a warning, a reckoning. And in the dark corners of space, where whispers carry farther than light, they would always remember the day Earth stood up, the day it answered death with defiance, and the day Leviathan shattered the illusion of power the Council had held for far too long. This was only the beginning.